Hello Scorpio, my name's Uma. This is your horoscope for the full moon Mars conjunction in Gemini. Please be gentle with me. I have a Gemini moon placement. Welcome back, Scorpio. So, we find ourselves at a real moment of ultra sensitivity. And I think that that's all right. And I think that you're probably really good at this, Scorpio. So let's work with that idea. Let's work with the idea of high temperature emotions. Let's work with the idea of that boiling point, that physical feeling when things like rage take us over, when things like embarrassment take us over, when things like anger and fear take us over. This is quite a specific full moon. So obviously the sun's in Sagittarius, 16 degrees, the moon's in Gemini, that creates the full moon. Gemini normally is quite a chatty area of the zodiac. There's a duality with Gemini. There's conversation that sort of runs over time. So I would probably check your chart, Scorpio, and if you do have any planetary placements in Gemini, that would be an interesting thing to find how this moon, in what degree is it affecting it completely. For me, myself, my moon placement is at 19 degrees of Gemini. So this full moon, I imagine, will be quite triggering in some aspect of my emotional makeup. So I'm not frightened of it. I'm definitely feeling it already. And so this is why we look at astrology, isn't it? This is why we read tarot cards. It's to 1, 2, 3, back in the room, regulate and witness and recognize ourselves in something bigger than ourselves. Gemini might have the propensity to get trapped in here. It's an air sign and a conversationalist. So this full moon's in Gemini, as it stands, might be quite emotional, or might be quite frenetic. Anyway, this full moon is in a conjunction with Mars, who is stationed retrograde back on the 31st of October. So since the 31st of October, Mars has been moving, from our perspective, in a backwards motion through the sign of Gemini again, and at this full moon will reach 16 degrees. So it's an exact conjunction with Mars. So potentially things that have been starting to boil, perhaps there's been misfires in communication, perhaps there has been anger on the tip of your tongue. On the contrary to that, there might also be passion and intensity on the tip of your tongue too. Mars can represent a sort of confident sexuality as well. So there's two sides of the same coin, isn't it? Let's look at where this is playing out for you exactly. So if you're a Scorpio rising, then Gemini rules your 8th house, which is where we come together in intensity and where we leave one another in a similar intensity. If we think about the natural zodiac, when I say that, I mean Aries in the 1st through to Pisces in the 12th, where each sign is of best benefit to that particular area of our life. You rule the 8th house, Scorpio. That's your dominion. If you think about the ability that you have to go there on behalf of us, if you think about the reserves that you have emotionally and the incredible boundaries that are needed to feel at that level of intensity, then you can start to think maybe of what the 8th house might represent. I think that It's lovely as a Scorpio rising in particular to have Gemini rule your 8th house, because there is conversation to be had there. There is an intelligence and an analysis of that area. To have a full moon in the 8th house is different for everyone. For you, I would imagine, Scorpio, that there would be things perhaps needing to be said in terms of dear ones that are bonded with you, or perhaps have broken away and fallen away and you've had to grieve in some capacity. There's conversations here about love and loss that are really quite strong, I can see very clearly. I think the tarot card for 16 degrees of Gemini, also the tarot card for Mars in Gemini, is the Nine of Swords. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is one school of esoteric study that actually developed these cards in particular. So I will say the Pamela Coleman Smith illustrated cards, Pamela belonged to the Hermetic Order. She belonged to that school of esoterica. And their way of reading the zodiac with tarot cards assigned a planetary body to each decan, each 10-degree wedge of the zodiac, which then went to inform the information in that card. So when we look at the Nine of Swords, we see Mars in Gemini in action. Remember that the swords in the tarot represent thoughts. They can represent truth. They can represent information. And there's a lot of darkness in this card. There's a up at night repetition going on in this card. I think that if we can liken that to the energy of Mars and that strident forward-moving activation that Mars wants, that fire to lead the charge and to move very quickly. Add that amount of fire to the wind of Gemini in that conversation. When is it going to stop burning? Is an image that comes to mind. If in here there's a repetition for you, Scorpio, of, it's almost like obsession is perhaps what I'm feeling. And I don't say obsession in a way to reprimand you. Absolutely not. I will remind you, I have a Gemini moon. But I will say that at this lunation in particular, it would pay you to be extra specially kind and careful and gentle with yourself, with your emotions. Think the full moon moves all of our emotions around the area of sorrow, grief, and intense connection. There may be things that are coming to you. You may be feeling this already. Mars has been in Gemini since the 20th of August. Normally they move quite quickly. They spend, I think is it 7 weeks? Something like that in a sign. This is 7 months. This is a long time for Mars to be present in your 8th house. Again, I'm speaking specifically to my Scorpio risings. So I want for you at this full moon to put this information in your back pocket. I don't wish to silence your grief or your ecstasy in any way, Scorpio. We must remember that Mars actually does rule your sign. So in that way, you can work with this. You can work with this fire. Very interesting to have a fire planet rule a water sign, isn't it? I think that if it becomes too much for you, if there are continual memories or recollections of times gone by, if there's reconnection that you long for and perhaps is out of your grasp, I really think that it might pay you to have a moment with the planet Saturn at this time. Saturn is in Aquarius. Aquarius for you rules your fourth house of your privacy, of your root system, the base of your chart. Saturn brings with it a great sense of boundary, a great sense of regulation, and a great sense of karmic retribution, maybe. You know, you are safe in Saturn's company at this full moon, I would say, Scorpio. Saturn at 20 degrees of Aquarius forms a trine with Mars and with this moon. That's support. That's a hand out. That's reaching together to see it through. There is real intensity at this moon, Cancer, I won't deny it. Sorry, Scorpio. Oh gosh, get it together. You know what I'm saying. But let's get you a little intuitive tarot, shall we, Scorpio, just to help you through this one. Now, we don't do any of this we don't do this stuff to strike fear into the hearts of others, do we? We do it to come to some sense of, okay, so I've been in this moment for a while. I've been on this repetitive loop of thought and longing or worry, perhaps grief, and I've been trying to kick it. And so by witnessing the idea of Mars in your 8th house, by witnessing the idea of this full moon bringing some sort of wave of emotion, then you can feel a little less alone, perhaps, in that cerebral enclosure that Gemini can sometimes bring with it. Okay. The Two of Wands. The Page of Wands. And the Emperor. I see Mars in the Emperor. You can see they're wearing a red power suit there. Very stable, very large and in charge, very embodied. I see Mars there. I see this Two of Wands and this Page of Wands. I see this. There's an outward glance here, Scorpio. There's a looking out into the ether. There's a willingness and a want to start something. And so when I look at the Two of Wands, I'm also reminded of Mars. Mars in Aries is the Two of Wands. And I see the Page of Wands here in the center as the child of magic, as the fire starter. So perhaps in all of my discussion on the trepidation, perhaps of this moon, the tarot is telling me something very different. The tarot is telling me something about readiness and about you being ready and able to take this particular lunation on, and about you having power with this and being able to work with this intensity that we'll all experience on the 8th of December, and working with it and creating some form of magic. To have the Two of Wands and the Page of Wands, the Wands are our magic. They're our access to our magic. And now that I think about it, you are a Scorpio. You can do intensity. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. So in some way, it might be great for you to, as I said before, perhaps, work with the energy of Saturn and see that as a guide. Absolutely. I think that's very important to have a sense of boundary, particularly in magical work. But also, I think maybe you should carve Mars onto your candle too. I think that probably what we're experiencing and what we're going through right now, this trepidation, this exhaustion, this Nine of Swords rinse cycle of thoughts and remembrances, difficult for some, not difficult for all. Not difficult for all. I feel that you're cooking something up, Scorpio. I think that there's something here that this full Mars, let's say, is going to be a portal for you. I wasn't expecting that, and I think that that's really great. And this actually reminds me of the magic of tarot, but also the magic of you, Scorpio. Scorpio is a warrior. I think it's really important to remember that. One of the examinations of astrology is as far as the soul's incarnation through the zodiac. The soul goes into battle twice. Maybe I've told you this, stop me if you've heard it before. Once in Leo, the soul fights for our individual expression. And once again in Scorpio, Scorpio fights for our soul. Scorpio sees the depths, knows the depths. That's why there's that carapace of ice. And they're doing it on behalf of all of us. So maybe if there is a doorway here, if there's a gateway that you can feel, if there's a line of communication. Eighth house, this could be on this plane, this could be on another. I'll put it that way. But whatever it is that you're potentially thinking about, I would take this tarot reading as a surefire sign to go through with it. That's your reading, Scorpio. So much love to you. I mean that sincerely. Thank you very much for being here with me and liking my videos and subscribing and telling your friends, showing who else in your community likes to speak a little bit of astro speak and might find some of these readings comforting. Do send them my way. Also head to umaruby.com and book your birth chart reading with me. I accept bookings through my website only. So head over, again, umaruby.com. All the information's over there. I love you very much, Scorpio, and I look forward to speaking to you in 2 weeks for the new moon in Capricorn. So until then, Godspeed, my friend. Get it done. Bye.